Erased Destiny. Chapter 8. Too Many Changes. Jargon mounted his horse and rushed after Marigold. He wanted to see her new life with his own eyes, to understand better her plans and ambitions. He saw the girl rushing down the sunlit road, slowly dissolving into darkness. Despite squeezing Patch's sides with all his might, despite wrapping the mare with a whip, Jargon was unable to match the speed of the magical mount. How could she ride so fast if during the trip to the swamps she could barely keep her posture? When Marigold rode into a field of quinoa, Jargon didn't know whether she failed to control her horse or did it on purpose to stir up a cloud of pink dust. Her clothes and the horse's black coat were covered with powder, traces of which Jargon, who had stayed behind, clung to. Just before the gate, Marigold slowed down so that the wanderer's spell wouldn't flicker, and the horse's panting wouldn't draw the attention of the guards. She waited a moment for the crowd in front of the gate to thin out a bit and rode into Sintra. Jargon arrived at the gate 5 minutes after his friend. He left Patch in the stables. Seeing that he's in hurry, Stableboy requested 2 times higher fee for taking care of the horse. Jargon paid and, angry at himself, ran after the pink footprints trampled by people, faintly visible on the city's tracks. Near the library, Marigold sent the horse away. The screech of disintegration steered Jargon more effectively than the dust of quinoa, although the buildings growing in the boy's path made it difficult for him to reach his destination quickly. He ran in the direction from which the unpleasant sound came, leaping over fences, trampling someone's flower beds, ignoring the sewage flowing down the gutter. To reach Marigold faster, Jargon used ice to create a staircase leading to the balcony, and from there jumped into the library courtyard. The imposing stone building did not receive any attention from the citizens of Sintra. People passing nearby either pretended not to see it or enjoyed strolling through the local garden, obliquely avoiding the front gates. Jargon approached the door and peeked inside. Marigold stood at the counter, completing the formalities necessary to use the collection. Cyril paid annual membership fees for all family members, so Jargon could have offered Marigold any book the girl needed, but he was afraid to approach her. He was afraid that Marigold would run away once again. Therefore, he waited outside until the girl went to the librarian, received the book, and stood at one of the tables. After cleaning his shoes, Jargon quietly climbed the library's stairs and watched his friends back from the upstairs terrace. He couldn't see what she was writing or what book was on the table in front of her, but he noticed that the letters she was putting down lacked proportion. Some too big, others too small, all somehow crooked and out of line. He thought that the girl should attend calligraphy classes instead of him. The sun was already setting, and Jargon was afraid that he would have to spend the night in Sintra. But before the gates closed, Marigold left the library. In her hand, she held a sheet with formulas for dyeing concoctions. On the side of the paper, she jotted down the names of plants she didn't know with the intention of consulting the results later with an atlas of herbs. Before returning to Amanda, she directed her steps toward the courthouse. Marigold paid no attention to anything, not even to the loud shouting of her own name. She entered the guardhouse, showed the mayor's letter to the guard, and was taken to the basement. Jargon ran after Marigold as hard as he could and managed to notice her intrusion into the guardhouse. While studying in the city library seemed quite normal to him, being in the midst of the guards did not. He approached the window and hid in the bushes growing nearby.
On the other side of the mirror stands me, but different.
Etienne looked at the leader of the kidnappers. She listened to the conversation about the order. The men met at an inn. There, the hoodlum with the ragged ear got an advance payment and a portrait of Umme. The principal, named Jared, indicated that he preferred Ummi to be taken alive, but would accept a dead one as well. The girl was to disappear by the end of Rogo. Jared was about 40 years old, not tall, obese, dressed too good for a mere criminal. Pale complexion, brown hair and mustache, no beard. His red nose and cheeks standard for high alcohol consumption, clean hands and nails were yet another proof of his workless life. Why would such a person want to kidnap you, me? Marigold headed for the mayor's house. On the way, she was joined by Ume, and also Jargon, who followed Marigold at such a distance that she did not notice him. He picked up snippets of conversation with Ume, but his mind was preoccupied with something else. What was Marigold doing in the guardhouse?
Where have you been? You didn't come to pick me up after classes.
I was handling your order. And I was interrogating the bandits. This time it was not your fiancé who tried to kidnap you.
Oh, really? Then who?
Ghost of the forgotten homework.
Groaned. She hoped that for once, Marigold would forget to check her notebooks.
Today, they didn't assign me anything, so maybe we could go somewhere together?
I am sorry, but first I need to talk to your father about that kidnap attempt. The main culprit is still somewhere out there and may be planning something nasty. Plus, you didn't describe the differences between a water arrow and a big wave.
Not only did Marigold have to remember all the assignments she was given and the spells she was supposed to teach, she received Ume's homework notes from Pillars on a regular basis. The girl persistently forgot to mark in the notebook that she had been assigned anything.
Water magic classes aren't tomorrow, so I still have plenty of time.
If you describe the differences, I'll take you to my fencing training. Do we have a deal?
A happy rushed to her room, and Marigold trotted up to the garden. In the evening, the mayor could usually be found in his favorite gazebo.
A man called Jared ordered kidnapping of Ume. I can show you memories of the leader of the bandits. Stream of consciousness.
Etienne touched Uriel's hand. It was more difficult and tiring to share anything this way, but she didn't feel that putting her hand on Mayor's head was a good idea. Uriel's face became whiter, but except of that, the man remained calm.
Thank you, Goldie. We will issue a wanted poster as soon as possible. I remember Jared was already accused of some minor crimes, bribery, something like that, but disappeared from Sintra. It seems he has returned, and this time he is up to something bigger. Until we catch him, could you pay more attention to Yume's safety? I know that with you she is in no danger, but still.
Of course. I won't let her out of my sight. Please do not let her roam Sintra alone. Today I have met her near the library, and she wasn't accompanied by anyone.
Jargon listened to the conversation from between the bushes. Marigold protected the mayor's daughter. Understanding less and less of what was going on around him, Jargon crouched outside the mansion. He waited for Marigold to go to the fencing practice. The locked gates no longer mattered to him, nor the brawl awaiting him at home. Nee handed the teacher a notebook. She described the gestures required, the amount of water called for, the appearance of the manifestation. Satisfied with herself, she put on her shoes and waited in the doorway. She never accompanied Marigold during training.
Information about spell durability, casting speed, and combat suitability is missing.
How do I know such things? There was nothing like that written in the book.
Knowing that the lecture was approaching, took a seat at the desk. She held a pen in her teeth, and Etienne called up long, unused knowledge. Water was the worst element for her, the one that she didn't master in her previous life.
The water arrow disappears as soon as it comes into contact with an object or energy. The water wave lasts for 10 to 60 seconds. The water arrow is thrown half a second faster than the big wave. Energy materializes equally fast in both spells. Not much combat utility. Are you done? Great, so let us go.
They slipped out through the service entrance and ran to Torden. Marigold knew she was late for her lesson, but she hoped presence would prompt the warrior to give the busy student a reprieve. Jargon followed the girls. He was glad that Marigold takes fencing lessons, that she cares about her own safety.
I am here. Sorry for being late.
Punctuality is not your strong point, eh? Take the sword and we start the lesson.
Torden looked at the sword that slipped out of Marigold's hand. He hadn't seen it since he had left the palace a good 25 years earlier. 2 elbows long, the blade was unusually black in color and slightly beveled at the end. Incomparable to non-magical weapons, its lightness and sharpness have caused many warriors unpleasant disappointment. Torden held his wooden training sword in his hand, a stick that, next to Marigold's weapon, seemed like a ridiculous toy. The girl attacked and Torden got out of her way. He knocked the girl on the back with a wooden sword.
Unbalanced you are.
Jargon thought the same thing. Marigold always attacked first, then thought about the strategy. She was exposing herself to certain death. The second time, the warrior slid his sword between Marigold's legs, making the girl collapse on the grass.
Don't look around. Concentrate on the duel.
Throughout my life, I have participated in maybe 5 sword duels and 5,000 armed clashes. From this perspective, I must admit that looking around has often saved my life. I'm missing something. Will you wait a minute?
Torden went home to get the magic weapon. From the tone and content of her speech, he guessed that Etienne took control over Marigold. Jargon looked in disbelief at the arsenal of various weapons being brought into the courtyard, from 2-handed sword, short swords, to thin blades piercing armor. All of them were made of steel and some gleamed under the influence of magical strengthening incantations.
Quite a collection you have there. For me, 2 swords and a scythe were enough.
And a bow. I'm glad you don't have it now.
Ume, will you lend me your power? Just for a few minutes. I'll show you what you could achieve if you diligently trained magic.
But I trained diligently. I practiced all spells that you showed me, even the fog spell.
Tang drew, 3 eyes on her hand and the same on Yuma's hand. Invisible traces flashed yellow light, flicked, and left thin white lines on the girl's hands.
Bound Curse. Don't be afraid. A bound curse is a mind spell, not a death one. Incantation can confuse, as in the case of the Curse of Darkening. A bound curse makes it possible for a mage to use another person's spells. Just wipe off the symbol and our bond is gone. Now watch carefully. Sword of Fire. Except of being a weapon, it has many other advantages, the main one being the ability to absorb any other fire spell and regenerating caster's magical energy.
Etienne summoned a flaming blade and grasped it with her left hand. Thus armed, she attacked Torden. She jumped over his sword, performed a pirouette in the air and struck from above. Torden swung her sword up, and Etienne did a backflip to strike with her other weapon. Jargon looked at his friend with eyes wide open. He didn't recognize her. It wasn't just the words. It was what she said and how she moved. In her eyes shone the coldness of a person who had taken the lives of many people, who had emerged unscathed from more than one battle. Torden's concentration also went beyond ordinary lessons. The warrior delivered each attack quickly, precisely, and with the intention of taking Marigold's life. Meanwhile, Marigold parried these attacks. With poison ivy, she grabbed onto nearby trees, fences, or rooftops to help herself perform breakneck acrobatics. She seemed to be everywhere at once, attacking from several places. After few minutes of fighting, she fell exhausted on the grass. Her panting reached Jargon on par with the frantic pounding of her heart. Her eyes, dilated with effort, stared into the starry night sky.
Fighting with you is a real pleasure, although you are as far from a warrior as it is possible to be. I've always wondered how, with such recklessness and notorious disregard for basic rules, you manage to win any clashes. Thanks to magic? No. Creativity? I don't know.
Etienne used a short break to correct Yumi's gesture and too fast hand movement. Energy didn't have time to flow properly. Only after Yumi managed to create an orange light, Etienne returned to Torden. She linked her weapons together and formed a huge black and orange flame above her.
I had the ice one before, but maybe with the fire one I can do it too. Too bad you don't have any talent for ice. Yumi, you need to use more energy. This way, a sword cannot form.
But I can't. My hand's already hurt. I will burn myself.
That is the reason Sword of Flames is taught on the 3rd year. It is not possible to learn it without small burns. Don't worry, I will heal you afterwards.
Are you going to return to the palace?
Etienne lifted herself to her feet, and with a spell, she wiped away the fatigue. Her heart rate returned to normal. Her breathing again became a barely audible murmur. The girl bent her legs, as if preparing to jump. Meanwhile, Torden drove his boots deep into the grass. The impact of the huge sword knocked the warrior back 2 steps.
The roof is on fire!
Great wave. That's why I've always preferred ice. On the power of death. A word of power. I miss my power, my spells, my memories, so maybe I would go to the palace. Maybe Zuzu will help me? Maybe Gabriella will think of something, but not now.
The squeals of a happy and excited Yumi were interspersed with the quiet groan of clashing clanks. Etienne perfectly maintained her balance, took no risks, did not turn her back on her opponent. She was dueling in a completely different way than at the beginning of the clash. Jargon closed his eyes every now and then, certain that Marigold was about to die.
I dream of such a show. In the square in front of the city hall. What do you think?
Such fights are terribly tiring, but I will think about it.
Shall I escort you home?
No need. Marigold killed 17 kidnappers the day before yesterday. I counted them myself.
Marigold set off back to the mayor's house, with all speed, dragging an exasperated behind her, and Jargon sat behind a tree for a while longer.
Not the first and not the last time, I suppose. Did they make at least a decent earning? Remember that I still have your money?
Yes, I remember. Could you store it for some more time? Thank you for the lesson.
Even Torden was more privy to Marigold's puzzling life than her childhood best friend. Jargon felt dejected, cheated, and useless to anyone. He became less and less curious about what Marigold was up to in the city, but he followed her once again.
Please, one last time, please, oh, please.
But then you go to bed, agreed?
Sure, straight to bed. I won't even wash myself.
Better wash yourself. Poison ivy, summoning a lower demon.
Marigold wove a swing from the green shoots and hung it from a beam, protruding from the roof of the burned house. The hairy creature pushed and Goldie analyzed the compositions of potions. Jargon leaned with his back against the wall of a nearby house. 2 years ago, Marigold was unable to properly grasp a weapon. She stumbled over her own feet, only shooting accurately with a sling. And as a 14-year-old, she kept pace with Torden. She fought him as an equal, the best fighter in Sintra. Once again, his own achievements seemed worthless to Jargon. He waited until a terminally ill man ran up to the girls, and Marigold looked at him and just said, "Done." He looked out from behind the coals. The worst part was that because of he couldn't approach Marigold. He couldn't talk to her, demand an explanation.
That pale gold is totally crazy. No one knows how to get such a color. Not even in the library.
I did not design these uniforms. I only chose the contractor. Will you walk me to school tomorrow? Or I know, we'll go to the river. With you, I can learn much more than in school. Can you take away everyone's power with this curse?
We will go to the river, but after your classes. I have never had to use this curse before, so I don't really know. Some time ago, I lost my power and all spells not belonging to the domain of death. I don't know if anyone can help me get them back, but maybe the Lady of the Crystal Palace. I would like to visit her.
I'll go with you. Do you know the Lady of the Crystal Palace? Is she pretty?
Marigold searched strenuously in her head for some memory related to Zuzu, but she could not find anything like that there.
I don't know. I have never seen her, but she is the most powerful mage of our world.
The Crystal Palace is very, very far away. Will your parents let you go?
16-year-old girl can go anywhere she likes to. But you, the mayor, will definitely not let you go.
Listen, why don't you wait with this trip until I'm an adult too? Will you do it for me? You can use my power at will. I won't wipe off this sign. I promise.
The brightly shining moon reminded the girls that it was high time to put the younger one to bed. Marigold, with poison ivy placed in her room, waved her goodbye and sat down on the bench, which was empty at this hour. Her head was spinning from the spells she had cast, sleeplessness, overwork. She clenched her fists. She still had to look through the atlas of herbs to find ingredients she didn't know, but she didn't have the strength for anything.